Well, it didn't turn out as you planned, my husband sneered. Just get the divorce papers filed and disappear, he added with a smirk. My husband's demeanor shifted dramatically the moment my father-in-law was hospitalized. I was stunned by what I heard next. Austin and I are dividing his inheritance. You're not getting a cent. There's no money for a wife who can't even manage the housework, my mother-in-law declared. I was speechless. Later, at City Hall, as I went to initiate the divorce proceedings, I uncovered a shocking truth. My name is Lindsay, and I'm a 24-year-old homemaker. Austin, my husband, is 40. It's a significant age gap, a May-December romance, as some might say. Our relationship, however, didn't blossom from a romantic courtship like in the movies. It simply happened. I landed a job at Austin's father's construction firm, and the company's owner seemed to take a liking to me from the start, repeatedly suggesting I marry his son. The underlying reason was that Austin, the presumed successor to the company presidency, seemed to have no prospects for marriage. The president, concerned about the future of his company, feared it would collapse without an heir. Austin's father, who knew my father through business, even visited our home to propose the marriage. My family also owns a construction business, one that's been passed down for generations. My father had worked at Austin's father's company in his youth, gaining valuable experience. Austin's father had been a mentor, teaching my father the ins and outs of running a business. Perhaps out of gratitude, my father felt obligated to consider the offer. However, the age difference was a major concern, and he didn't agree immediately. I want to respect both Austin's and Lindsay's choices, he explained, but any talk of marriage will have to wait until after a trial period of dating. Austin, aware that marrying me was a condition for taking over the company, readily agreed to my father's terms. Austin and I dated, going out for dinners, movies, shopping trips, and the like. Over time, we grew close enough to believe that marriage would work. We were officially engaged shortly thereafter. Soon after the engagement, Austin's father became ill and required frequent hospital visits. With Austin at work and my mother-in-law unable to drive, it fell to me, his fiancé, to care for my future father-in-law. My mother-in-law constantly pressed me to focus on household chores, complaining, "You're not doing a good enough job, considering you'll soon be my daughter-in-law. Lindsay, hurry up, visiting hours are almost over, get him there." Even before the wedding, I was treated like a servant. Still, I responded, "Yes, I'm coming, I'll get the car ready." While caring for my father-in-law, my mother-in-law suggested I move in. It was a bit premature, but she argued it would make caring for him easier. I agreed, thinking that commuting from my parents' house to the hospital multiple times a day would be less convenient than living with them. I was going to move there eventually anyway. I assumed the wedding would happen once my father-in-law's health improved, so why not just sign the marriage papers when I moved in? During this time, there were no hints of Austin being involved with anyone else. I soon understood why he was still single at 40. He was incredibly frugal, a miser who hated wasting money. He even kept meticulous records of our dates, itemizing how much he'd spent on me, on food, and on gas. Adding to the situation, my overbearing and critical mother-in-law was always nearby, making snide remarks and generally being unpleasant. No one dared challenge them. Austin, however, was incredibly generous with his mother, never questioning her lavish spending on travel and designer goods. I began to wonder if he was a mama's boy, someone so attached to his mother that he prioritized her above everyone else. Frankly, I felt I had rushed into marriage. I should have moved in without the legal commitment until I better understood their personalities and the dynamics of their household. But thinking of my own father and my father-in-law, I felt trapped. My father-in-law's genuine affection was the only thing that kept me going. That morning, I was preparing to take my father-in-law, who had been unwell since the previous day, to the hospital. My mother-in-law was treating me like hired help. "Lindsay, is breakfast ready yet? The cleaning you did yesterday was unacceptable. Hurry up and redo it," she demanded, lounging in front of the TV while Austin sat beside her, idly watching. "I'm sorry, I don't have time. I need to take your husband to the hospital," I replied. "Well, you should have gotten up earlier then. I have an appointment. Make us breakfast before you leave," she snapped back. I wondered if they could manage to do anything themselves, given their complete lack of concern for their husband and father. "Father, please wait a moment, I'll be right there," I said, quickly preparing breakfast and serving it to Austin and my mother-in-law. Then I went to my father-in-law and helped him to his feet. "I'm sorry I'm making you work so hard. I owe your father an apology too," he said. Just then, my father-in-law collapsed. "Are you all right?" I cried, horrified that my mother-in-law and husband continued eating as if nothing had happened. I called for an ambulance, my mind racing, until I heard the sirens. When it arrived, my mother-in-law announced, "Sorry, Lindsay, I have to run, you handle the rest." My husband followed suit. "I have work to do, so please lock up," he said, offering a weak excuse. They both left, abandoning my father-in-law and me at the hospital. He regained consciousness and was admitted. After the necessary procedures and the doctor's explanation, it was already dark. "If anything happens to me, I'll make sure you're taken care of, Lindsay," my father-in-law said weakly as I sat by his bed. "It's my way of apologizing for making you put up with my ungrateful son and wife. I suppose I've been too focused on work to see what's happening at home," he continued, "apologizing for pushing me to marry Austin." Moments later, Austin and my mother-in-law arrived. They both approached me, asking about his condition, thinking they were genuinely worried. I've reassured them he'll be fine, he just needs some rest, and he'll be out of here soon, repeating what the doctor had told me. Perhaps it was my imagination, but Austin clicked his tongue, and my mother-in-law seemed disappointed. A few days later, as I was preparing to visit my father-in-law, Austin and my mother-in-law presented me with a document. "Fill this out and submit it to the city office," my mother-in-law instructed. The form had green lines. It was a divorce agreement. Austin, having overheard the conversation in my father-in-law's hospital room, added, "My father got sentimental and said he was going to leave you something, but you're not getting a dime, isn't that right? You wanted a trophy wife, someone younger, but your scheme backfired. Go file for divorce. You're dead to us," he spat, his words laced with venom. "What?" I gasped, reeling from the unexpected attack. "Just go to City Hall. Austin and I are splitting his father's fortune. There's no one else to share it with, and we're not supporting a wife who can't even keep house," his mother added, her voice dripping with disdain. The things they were saying were sickening. My father-in-law was due to be discharged from the hospital in a few days, yet they spoke as if his death were imminent, a thought that terrified me. "How can you be so heartless? He's your family, he's not going to die. He'll come home and recover. Don't accuse me of being after the inheritance. That's the furthest thing from my mind," I retorted, my anger rising. I filled out the divorce papers, eager to be done with them, and rushed to the municipal office. Upon submitting the paperwork, the clerk gave it back with a puzzled look. "Is something wrong with the form?" I asked, confused. He said my name was incorrect. I assured him it was right, but then he asked for my maiden name, which matched. The clerk chuckled. "Your marriage was never registered, you were never legally married." He handed back the divorce papers. I called my mother-in-law, demanding an explanation. "Oh," she replied casually, "I completely forgot. I've had the paperwork all along." I didn't believe her for a second. She had treated me like dirt because I was her daughter-in-law. "You did this on purpose. You've been using me as your personal maid," I yelled, unable to contain my fury. "Well, it's hard to order around a stranger," she cackled, devoid of remorse, "but a wife will do anything. I can ask her for anything." Hearing Austin's laughter in the background, my blood ran cold. I vowed to fight back. They wouldn't get away with this. My first move was to call my father, asking him to meet me at City Hall. I explained everything, and he rushed to my side. We asked the same clerk to reiterate the situation in front of my father. We even obtained a certificate of residence confirming that neither Austin's name nor address had changed. I had been completely deceived into believing our marriage was legal. I had been forced into the role of a wife, working tirelessly, only to be discarded when the inheritance was at stake. Even my usually calm father was furious. Together, we went straight to the hospital. My father-in-law saw my father and said, "You didn't have to come all this way." But as he listened to the explanation, his face grew increasingly grim. We sat in his room, discussing what actions to take against Austin and his mother. Neither of them had visited him since he was admitted. Then my father-in-law made a startling proposition. He confessed that he couldn't rely on Austin to run the business, or even to marry responsibly. He wanted to entrust the company to my father. Fortunately, my father's business was thriving, so a merger with my father-in-law's company would be beneficial. He believed it was crucial to ensure the survival of the company he had built, no matter the form it took. He feared that Austin's character and personality would drive away customers and employees, ultimately destroying the business. This wasn't a decision I influenced. It was one made for the future of the company. It was the only way to prevent our relatives from seizing control. Then Austin's father, with a chilling laugh, announced his divorce. She's so obsessed with money, spending it all on herself without even visiting her husband. She deserves this, he said, shaking his head. Turning to my father and me, he asked, "Is this enough to make amends for the trouble I've caused?" We exchanged a look, a small smile playing on our lips. There could be no greater retribution. The next day, the lawyers and accountants my father had hired began their work. They decided to merge the two companies, retaining the name of Austin's father's business. Austin, the vice president, was fired and replaced by an executive from my father's company. The changes would become official once my father-in-law returned to work. This would be a devastating blow to Austin and his mother. The countdown to their downfall had begun. 2 weeks later, my father-in-law was discharged. My father and I picked him up and drove him home. His wife was nowhere to be seen, and Austin was at work, as if nothing had happened. Their callousness was astounding. They had no idea what awaited them the next day. The following morning, I returned to my previous job. There was a new vice president. Austin's father called a morning meeting in the large conference room, outlining the company's future. He announced the merger and the change in leadership. Then Austin burst in, holding a termination letter, and his mother appeared with divorce papers in hand. "Dad, what the hell is this?" Austin demanded, incredulous. "What are you talking about? I didn't hear a word about this." "Neither did I," his mother chimed in, equally stunned. How could this happen so suddenly? She glared around the room, mortified to see Austin and his mother ranting in front of everyone. "That's precisely the kind of outburst I expected," Austin's father said. "It's you," they both screamed, spotting me. "You did this, didn't you? You orchestrated all this, because you weren't getting your share of the inheritance." "I did nothing," I replied calmly. "You two brought this on yourselves." Austin's father stepped in, his gaze icy. "That's enough, you're disrupting the meeting, get out." Employees quickly escorted them from the room. He then apologized to everyone and concluded the meeting. Later, Austin and his mother, having regained some composure, repeatedly begged for forgiveness from both me and Austin's father. I ignored them. They lingered around the company for a while, but have since disappeared. Security guards issued them warnings, and they are no longer allowed on the premises. They were also evicted from their home. According to Austin's father, they're now living in a rundown apartment near their old house. As for me, I'm enjoying a peaceful life as an office worker. My father, still seething, is preparing to file a lawsuit against them for their deceit and mistreatment. They've lost everything. Their descent into hell has begun, and I won't lift a finger to help them. I hope they've learned a valuable lesson. How you treat others will always come back to you. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.